Oprah Winfrey has been subpoenaed by Drew Dixon. This is the woman that has accused Russell Simmons of sexual assault. Now, Drew has come forward about this years ago. She's done a number of interviews talking about this particular assault and her time working with Russell Simmons. So this is not new. I want to be very clear. Drew Dixon came out about this years ago. And along the way, she found that there were other women who are also accusing Russell Simmons as well. It's really interesting because I saw the picture of them and they all have something in common. They all kind of look like Drew. So it seems like there is a type that he may like. Russell Simmons is big music mogul. He founded Run DMC. Like, for those who are not aware, he's been involved in the music business for a long, long time. And I want to start out with Drew talking about Oprah Winfrey first. This is going to take us through a timeline because I want to end with what Whitney Webb warned us about in that article that I just covered a couple of days ago. All of this is connected. It's not just about Drew Dixon. It's not just about Oprah being subpoenaed. And we're going to connect those dots here today. So a while back, 4 years ago, Drew Dixon talked about what happened with Russell Simmons, what she alleged happened. But part of this conversation here that she had with For Harriet, she gets into this part here about Oprah Winfrey. And I think this is the part people need to hear. Apparently at this time, she found out that Oprah Winfrey was going to participate in the documentary of the accusers. The documentary, I believe, is called, I have to look it back up. Sorry, we'll get to it. On the record. And she wanted to be a part of it. She wanted to participate. And then somewhere along the way, she ends up backing out. Let's get into that part first. We'll start there and we'll land with Whitney Webb. Listen to this.
Yeah, so let's move on to Oprah. You alluded to Oprah's initial involvement in this documentary. And I think that's how a lot of us kind of found out that this was going to be made when she signed on to be a producer and that this was going to be distributed on Apple TV Plus. I think that's the name of the platform. But then a day before, I believe, or maybe a couple of days before it was supposed to premiere at Sundance, was it one day or more than that?
15 days.
Okay, so a couple of weeks before this was set to premiere at Sundance, Oprah came out and said that she was no longer going to be attaching her name to it. She went on TV and said it was because of creative differences with the directors of the film. And then later she actually came out and said that she felt like some of your testimony in the film, your recollection of events, she felt like there were some inconsistencies. And I wonder how hurtful that was for you.
That was excruciating. That was deeply, deeply painful for me. It was almost like my greatest fear in doing this in the first place played itself out in the way the most powerful Black woman, maybe in the world, certainly in entertainment, was standing up for us. And then the very thing I feared, which was this charge of disloyalty to the race and of abandonment of Black men, you know, in light of all of the ways they're falsely accused and vilified, was somehow the rationale for attacking her. So that was painful, watching her be attacked.
Let me pause here for a second. The way that I saw this was that Oprah was looking to protect herself. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. People have to realize how much it took for someone like Drew Dixon to come forward in the first place. Right? Like, obviously coming forward to say that someone as powerful and as popular as Russell Simmons attacked you, like did this to you, obviously most people are not going to be on your side. And then you find out that Oprah, of all people, wants to be a part of the documentary of yourself and other survivors that are also coming forward. Then you find out she wants to pull out because she feels like there's inconsistencies in your story. I don't believe it was because she thought there were inconsistencies. I think that Oprah wanted to detach herself from this at that point in time as much as possible to protect herself. Like I said, these people are very powerful. When we talked about the Whitney Webb's article about the Diddy Epstein connection, don't forget Russell Simmons was also in that article. All of these people are connected, guys. And so some people, they don't want to, mess up like their social circle. They also, I believe, some of these other people also are being blackmailed. I don't think it's just Epstein and Diddy that have been, maybe working for other people like Clive Davis, et cetera, and had blackmail. I believe that there's a lot of people in Hollywood that have been blackmailed. I believe somebody somewhere in Hollywood has something on everybody, except for those who choose not to partake in the Hollywood social circles, the people that don't live there, right? So like they're actors and actresses, but they choose to live in like Montana or something like that. I really do believe. Let me let her go on a little bit more.
Was painful. I never met her. I was told meet her sort of at some point. She was going to interview me maybe, and I don't know. That's what I was told. I have no idea really. So I was devastated to watch her take that incoming. I really hated to see that. But I never, ever in a million years thought she would leave. It was like this fairy godmother. I thought we'd been rescued. And I actually, at one point, when she was being attacked by 50 Cent and Russell on social media, I downloaded the picture of Gayle King sitting there while R. Kelly attacks her, and I made it my screensaver on my phone to reassure myself, these women are not going anywhere. You couldn't be in better hands. And, and then we found out on January 10th at, I think it was 6:20 p.m., that she was exiting the project and she was taking Apple TV with her. And I was in the fetal position in my apartment for 3 days. It was literally my worst fear was playing itself out with this woman I admired and this man that I had admired. And I just couldn't believe that it was coming down to this. And so we went to Sundance terrified, Sherry, Salai, and myself with the filmmakers. We stood there not knowing if the film would ever be seen by anyone beyond the, 500 people in the theater at the premiere. And yes, I did read that she said there were inconsistencies in my story. I have no idea what she's talking about. I literally have no idea what she's talking about. The story the New York Times wrote 2 years ago was a 3,000-word piece that not a soul has refuted in 2+ years. I have, friends that I told the story who told the exact same story to the New York Times 22 years later, some of whom I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Those friendships don't always last. People move to LA, they move wherever, they leave the industry. I left the industry. Some of those people were not my close friends anymore. And I just gave their names to the New York Times and, hope that, for the best. I didn't know if they even remembered, and they did. And they were exactly consistent with what I said. And so it's hurtful. I also continue to admire her. I continue to regard her as a hero in the sense that what she's achieved against all of the odds is remarkable. And what she's done with her platform is remarkable. The Breonna Taylor billboards, the 26 Breonna Taylor billboards are amazing. And, Breonna Taylor on the cover of her magazine is amazing. And, I don't understand it. I, don't spend time thinking about things I can't control. I believe things happen for a reason. And I had to discover that I don't need to hide behind Oprah Winfrey. And Sherry doesn't need Oprah Winfrey. And Salai doesn't need Oprah Winfrey. And no survivor needs Oprah Winfrey. All we need is ourselves.
I just want to pause it there. You guys can watch the rest of that if you want to. But that point there, like, no, you don't need Oprah Winfrey. I mean, it definitely helps if you have someone backing you that has the resources and the access that she does. But you don't, you know? So what was interesting to me there is that she saw her as a hero. And I always caution people about that. Like, please don't look at people as heroes, especially politicians. I've told you guys about that before, right? Like, don't look to people as, no, don't. People are human. People are flawed. We all are, right? So that was 4 years ago. Fast forward this year, and now Oprah Winfrey is being subpoenaed by Drew. Listen to this. Oprah Winfrey subpoenaed by Russell Simmons. I'm going to say sexual assault because YouTube, sexual assault accuser. In 2017, Drew Dixon first claimed that Russell Simmons assaulted her back in 1995. There's a picture here of Oprah. And this is Russell Simmons here with the bow tie. Let's go on. Let's get into this, folks. Oprah has been dragged into the Russell Simmons assault case by way of subpoena. Let's get on to this. According to Page Six, Drew Dixon has subpoenaed the former talk show host, pressuring Winfrey to present evidence supporting her claims in a defamation suit against the Def Jam mogul. The legal document obtained by the outlet details information that Dixon and her legal team are requesting from Winfrey, including all other tangible things that corroborate her claims. Dixon's docs also demand that the Color Purple entertainer appear in court to testify in her assault case against Simmons. So this is a big deal. They're asking her to testify. They're asking Oprah to take the stand and raise her hand. This is a big deal. I don't know if Oprah's going to be able to wiggle her way out of this. I don't know. I mean, you can't ignore a subpoena and just say, oh, I don't see that. But I'm wondering if she may try to get out of testifying, right? It goes on to say the subpoena stems from the former Def Jam executive Drew Dixon, previously accusing Simmons in the New York Times piece of assaulting her in his apartment back in 1995. Simmons would respond to the claims in an interview with Graham Bissinger in 2024, during which he was asked about Dixon's claims. The Queens native asserted that he had never been forceful in any relationship and labeled every encounter he has had with women as consensual. Simmons then pondered rhetorically, could someone want notoriety in a market where people thirst for fame? And then here's a picture of Drew Dixon here. Now, I want you to hold on to that part because you may be wondering, well, where the hell is Russell Simmons? In Bali. Russell Simmons is not living in the United States. And that's what makes this even tricky, right? Like, it makes it a little bit messy because he doesn't live here anymore. Some are saying that Russell Simmons left the country because of these allegations. It's not just Drew Dixon. There are other women that came forward about Russell Simmons. So let's show this part here. Russell Simmons on living in Bali amid lawsuits. Never had any reason to feel unsafe in America. Now let's get into this. Again, there's Russell Simmons again there. Russell Simmons has lived in Bali since 2018, but he swears that the relocation doesn't mean he's been hiding out from allegations of sexual misconduct and sexual assault. The Def Jam Recordings founder issued a statement to All Hip Hop posted on Friday, May 24th, in which he insisted that rumors of him being unable to freely return to the U.S. are false. People saying that somehow I can't come home when I'm there all the time wears on you. Simmons told the outlet, it wears on me a while to keep hearing the same narrative, which is false. I'm always in LA. I'm always in New York and Miami, and I've never had any reason to feel unsafe in America. Also, sharing that he doesn't intend to live in New York again, Simmons acknowledged that he previously lived in California for 9 years and currently pays non-resident state taxes. I am not physically present in New York, and I do not have any intention to live in New York in the future. So, Russell is not here. And it goes on to say here, I do want people to see this part as well. I own no property taxes in the US. I have been living in Bali since 2018, which is where I intend to remain for at least 9 years before I moved to Bali. I lived in California. As a California resident, I paid California resident taxes in the years immediately prior to moving to Bali. Currently, I pay California non-resident state taxes. As multiple women have accused Simmons of sexual assault and harassment, the Queens native has vehemently denied the allegations, although music executive Drew Dixon has in the past alleged that Simmons sexually assaulted her in 1995. She tackled the alleged incident in 2020's HBO documentary On the Record. Also suing Simmons for defamation in February, a suit Simmons has sought to be dismissed. Now, this is where it gets kind of spooky, right? Because I'm telling you, this is all connected. Because we're making our way to Whitney Webb's article. I just want you to understand who Drew was around. You see, there's another interview here where she talks about the inner workings. And she also brings up in this particular segment that Russell Simmons, she alleged, apologized to her. I kid you not. Listen to this.
I did read something where I felt like at one point, did you guys have a conversation where he kind of apologized to you?
Oh, he did. Yeah. So, I mean, Russell Simmons is the king of hip hop. So, as long as I was still in the music industry, I was bound to run into him. So that happened quite often. But there was one particular time when I was at an event with Clive Davis, and I often would be out with Clive. If Clive was out, I was sort of at his side. Keith Naftali, Peter Edge, and I were kind of like often right there with him.
Pause. Ding, 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 ding. There's a name that you've heard before. You heard me mention it a couple of days ago. Clive Davis. Is everybody connecting the dots? This particular time she was out with Clive Davis, but she also goes on to say that it wasn't unusual, obviously, for her to be around Clive Davis. I mean, all these people work together. Remember what I told you about Clive Davis? Remember what we read in Whitney's article about Clive Davis, that he was who? Diddy's mentor, that he groomed Diddy. Let's continue.
And we were at some event, and I got up and I walked away from the table where I was sitting with Clive, and I was sort of like walking through the crowd, maybe near the stage. I'm not even sure what the event was anymore.
Mm.
But Russell tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and it was like, seeing a ghost. I mean, I would see him around, but I obviously was always unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
But I always had to have my poker face because he's still Russell Simmons, and I didn't want him to be an enemy.
Wow.
And he said, I just wanted to let you know that I'm sorry. And I do yoga now, and I have daughters now, and I realize it was fucked up. I'm just sorry, and I hope we can be cool. And I was just like, we're cool. We're cool. I mean, the last thing I wanted was beef with Russell Simmons.
Right.
I mean, even though I was doing well at Arista and was working with Clive, Russell Simmons was way more powerful than I was.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't afford that. And there was also another point where I was involved in Arista's acquisition of Profile Records. And Run DMC is really the biggest artist on Profile Records.
Mm-hmm.
And Leor Cohen had actually called me about that deal and sort of was fishing to find out if I was going to be a problem for Joey Simmons' run because of what happened. And I was like, no, I'm cool. Like, I would be thrilled to work with Run DMC. I love Run DMC. I'd be honored, it's all good. And then I saw Russell again kind of around that time. And I said, I just want to let you know, like, I would love to work with your brother, and it's all good. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like, what am I gonna do? He's
Yeah.
Russell Simmons.
Yeah.
So she alleges that he apologized to her. That's her, little her spiel about that there. Again, I keep saying alleges because y'all ain't coming after me. You guys are not coming after me, okay? So I got to make sure I say alleges. But when we talk about law and order here, I just want to connect the final dots. Clive Davis, Russell Simmons, and it brings us right back to Whitney Webb's article, One Label Under Blackmail, the Early Intersections of Diddy and the Epstein Network. We are going to fast forward here to the Russell Simmons part. I'm not going to read this again. We went through this. So if you're new, you can find that Whitney Webb clip where I covered the Diddy stuff when we get to the Clive Davis part. So again, there's the section about Clive Davis. And we want the part of the mentors. Let's get to that section. You can tell I spent some time reading this article because I already know where the sections are now. Mentors in crime. Mentors in crime. After the scandal around Combs began to break, Clive Davis, as well as Andre Harrell of Uptown and Russell Simmons of Def Jam, have been accused of propelling Combs into patterns of criminal behavior for which he is now infamous. For instance, one-time rival and former friend of Combs, Suge Knight, has claimed that Davis, Harrell, and Russell Simmons use alcohol, drugs, specifically cocaine, to compromise Combs' manhood. Did everybody hear what I just said? Is everybody connecting the dots now? This is particularly significant in the case of Davis' ties to Drugola scandal, which involved using sex, drugs, and bribes to specifically target Black-oriented radio stations and music. Everybody connecting the dots? Why do we keep ending up back to the same people? Every time we get into these stories, we're ending up back to Epstein, Diddy, Clive Davis, one of them. So even when we talk about Russell Simmons and what Drew Dixon is alleging, I just had to take you back to the statement from Suge Knight that Russell Simmons, along with Clive Davis and Andre Harrell, compromised Diddy's manhood. We are looking at what could potentially be a giant organization of trafficking and assault. Connect the dots. So whether or not you're sure if you believe Drew or not, one thing I think we can all follow is that there seems to be a pattern. Seems to be a little bit of a pattern here. Just a little bit. Now, as you'll also see, Arista Records, that's who she was working for. So she was working with Clive Davis, Russell Simmons. Clive Davis owned Arista Records. So all of the people are together. Listen to this. Knight has argued that Davis, Simmons, and Harrell first compromised Combs, and then Combs went on to use alcohol, drugs, and gay sex to control younger artists like Usher and Bieber. Notably, Combs' entry into the world of Andre Harrell, Simmons, and shortly thereafter Clive Davis coincides with the development of his obsessive drive to record everything, presumably for blackmail purposes. What'd I tell you guys about the blackmail? I really do believe, and people can take it any kind of way they want to. If you haven't read this article by Whitney by now, pick a Saturday, spend some time and read it. You can see even at the very beginning of the article, who's the picture of? Russell Simmons is right here on the right. You know what I was just thinking about for a second? Kimora Lee. Kimora Lee Simmons, who was Russell Simmons' wife. Don't forget when he met Kimora Lee. Kimora Lee was a model. She was a model as a teenager. He met her when she was a teenager. There's a pattern. I don't know if he's in Bali. I can't confirm that he's in Bali to avoid these cases. I don't know. But the fact that Oprah has now been subpoenaed for this particular case, that tells me there's something that Oprah knows and that Drew knows she knows, and Drew wants her to tell on the stand. And that's why I'm asking this question, guys. Do you think that Oprah will find a way to get out of it, to get out of testifying? Because you can't sit up there and lie under oath. And if Drew has proof, if Oprah were to lie and Drew has proof that she's lying, that's bad for Oprah. Honestly, if Oprah testifies, it's bad for Oprah. If Oprah doesn't testify, it's bad for Oprah. Oprah is screwed. But that tells me that Drew either knows or believes that there's something that Oprah does know about this particular situation, this particular maybe assault, and that's why she was subpoenaed. Crazy times, man, crazy times. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.